Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the April meeting of the Planning Committee. I have apologies for absence from Mrs. Nicholson, and Mrs. Chilcott is substituting for her. I don't believe there are any other apologies. No, thank you. Any declarations of interest, please? Lobbying of members and unaccompanied site visits that you wish to declare? No, thank you. Minutes. To approve as correct record the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 3rd of February. May I take them as a true record, please? Thank you. Seconded. May I see all those in favour?
He isn't there, but
Thank you. Thank you. And are there any matters arising, please, from page 1? Or page 2? No? Thank you. And can I just remind members that although we didn't have a planning committee meeting last month, we did have very helpful training, and I hope that we'll have the opportunity to revisit some of those items when we do our planning tour later in the year. I have not been advised of any business of urgency. Public speaking we will take when we have the relevant items. So we move to agenda item number 6. 6.1, to note the decision of the Secretary of State to dismiss the appeal against refusal of planning permission at Truscombe Farm, Woodland Cross. Mr. White.
Thank you, Chairman. So Truscombe Farm is a historic farmstead. It comprises actually 10 units of holiday accommodation which should be converted from a group of traditional farm buildings around the property. The appeal concerns a condition which was attached to a planning permission grant in 2018. Okay, so they applied to remove the condition, and the condition in particular related to an extension of the farmhouse, with the extension providing a sort of a meeting space, and if you like, for guests to use. So guest holiday accommodation had this space they could congregate, they could use for birthdays or anything like that. But the condition in particular on that extension restricted specifically its use, was restricted specifically to those people staying at Truscombe Farm. Okay, the applicant applied to vary that condition because they wanted to be able to use that space by people wider than just those on the holiday complex. But as officers we had concerns with that. The Highway Authority had concerns because it then would mean an increase in traffic movements through their junction onto the A396 just south of Welling Cross. So you can see the street view photograph there. The track just to the right hand side is the track leading up to Truscombe Farm. The aerial photograph above, you can see the track like to the right hand side of the yellow road up to the farm buildings. And as we look up the road there, you can see the road turns right just after the junction, which really does restrict its visibility in the direction of Welling Cross. In looking at the appeal, obviously the main issue was the impact on highway safety with any relaxation of that condition, and the inspector wasn't persuaded, despite the business case put forward, that was a suitable highway access to enable an unrestricted use of the extension to the farmhouse. I think paragraphs 8 and 9 in particular set that out against the business case, and the appeal was dismissed on highway safety grounds. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that appeal? No? Thank you very much. So that takes us to item 7, development management, and our first application is 6325009, which is an update report. Members will remember that we considered this in December, and the item was deferred to enable further discussions to take place with the applicant and for further material to be submitted. So I'm going to ask Mr. Rose to give the update report, and then we'll take public speaking after that. Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll briefly summarise the key elements of the application, as I did back in December, just as a bit of a refresher for members, and I'll highlight the main amendments as I go through the presentation. So here is the location plan. The site is located within the parish of Brompton Regis. And here's a further location plan submitted by the applicant themselves, showing a bit more detail surrounding their land ownership. Here are the existing and proposed site plans. You can see on the left the existing ruinous structure, and on the right the new proposed building, as well as an area to the north-east of the site proposed for mixed scrub planting for BNG purposes. That's this sort of section over here. And here's an aerial site plan just for a bit of further visual context. This slide illustrates the previously proposed mixed-use building on the left, alongside the amended design on the right. The revised scheme has been reduced in both length and height by approximately 0.5 metres. And now moving on to the site photographs. I will move through these quite quickly, but if members want me to refer back to them during the debate at all, do let me know and I can go back through these. It is worth noting on this slide that the right-hand side photograph shows the proposed location for the BNG. So the key considerations in this case relate to the principle of the development, its design and the impacts on the character and appearance of the landscape, as set out within the original officer's report and my updated report. Officers are not satisfied that the proposal demonstrates an overriding functional agricultural need for a new isolated building, nor any exceptional circumstances to justify its siting. As such, the proposal is considered to conflict with policy SES4 of the local plan. Furthermore, the introduction of a new isolated building in the open countryside is considered to result in a degree of harm to the character, appearance and natural beauty of the national park, contrary to policies CES1, CED1 and CES6. In this case, the identified landscape harm is considered to attract substantial weight in the overall planning balance, in line with paragraph 189 of the National Planning Policy Framework, which is explicit that great weight should be given to conserving and enhancing landscape character and scenic beauty within national parks, even where such harm is limited. Whilst officers acknowledge that a level of need has been identified in this case, this is afforded limited weight in the absence of more robust justification. Officers therefore consider that on balance the limited benefits of the proposal do not outweigh the harm identified, which must be afforded great weight, resulting in conflict with the relevant policies of the local plan, and on that basis it's recommended that planning permission be refused. I should also add, Chair, that the authority has received a late comment from a couple of local residents, which I shall just summarise now. So the local residents have stated that they regrettably are unable to attend the meeting today and therefore submit this statement and questions instead. Their concerns are regarding the proposed development. Our concerns regarding the proposed development remains that its industrial character and dominant in size, its location on a relatively small parcel of land with no relation to farmland or other farm buildings, the visual aspects and influence it will have on their farm and open countryside. They then stated that naturally our genuine concern is also regarding the proposed building's longer term future, for example possibility of further development, recreational or commercial activities and non-related agricultural purposes. They then asked that should the proposal be in conflict with Exmoor National Park's policies but permission be granted, whether this would create a precedent for other small parcels of private land within the National Park. Thank you, Chair.
So can I just clarify, that comment was from Mr and Mrs Veltink. Mrs Veltink, you will remember, spoke at the previous meeting, and I think Mr and Mrs Veltink purchased the farm, didn't they? So they are the landowners of now Dawes Farm at Hamilton Lane. So it's quite clear Everyone's got that. That was from Mr. and Mrs. Wilton. And so I will now ask the applicant, Mr. Veal, please, if you would come to the microphone. And Mr. Veal, you'll have 2 minutes from when you start to speak. I'm not quite sure if it's on, but you might just need to check that the switch is on at the top.
When my last parent died in December 2023, Dawes Farm had to be sold, as I've got 2 brothers and 2 sisters, so it had to be sold to settle the estate. As I've been helping Mum and Dad for the last goodness knows how many years, my siblings unanimously gifted me this little plot so I could rebuild the shed and store tractors and the beehives in it. Unfortunately, neither they or I were aware of SES4. So I'm very sorry it's in the wrong place, but that's all I've got. I don't have any other options. I've done my best to accommodate the comments made so far. I've changed the use from private storage to agricultural, so it's not industrial, it's agricultural. I've minimised the size, not a lot, but I'm restricted by the height of the tractor cab and the mechanism for the roller blinds at the front. Once the hedge between the shed and the field grows up, it will be further screened from the field and it's not visible from the farmhouse. The shed's very near the road and therefore an easy target for thieves, so steel shutters seem to be the best security that I can fit. I think I know more about the water supply on Dawes than anyone, and this will have no impact on water supply at all. The house supply is 2 fields away on the opposite side of the lane. I've had a BNG and arboreal survey done. I've already put up bird boxes. There'll be no external lighting. The outside appearance of cladding and roofing will be as requested. No other part or outside department have any concerns, and Brompton Regis Parish Council are actually in favour. I can't see I can do much more to mitigate its existence. I can't stress enough how important this small shed is to me. I became paraplegic in 1977, which brought a rather abrupt end to my RAF career, but I think I've done okay since. But the fact is that I'm getting older. I find mobility more of a struggle, so I need to make activities as easy and as safe as possible. Having all the bee equipment at the apiary will make a huge difference, and having the flat cement floor to walk on will also be much safer for me. What I propose has to be better for the character and appearance of Exmoor than what's there at present. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hill.
So, members, this is a slightly unusual one in that we are coming back to an application that was deferred a few months ago. Mr. Rose, I think, did refer that officers were making a recommendation on balance, and so we have the opportunity to decide whether or not we share that balance or not. So, members, your views. Please. Right. Mrs. Smith.
Excuse me. Thank you. What was the ruinous building used before?
As far as I know, it was an agricultural building on the farm. Just a small barn. As there often are on farms, actually, on small barns of this type.
So storage similar to what, or not? Is it because of the size? Sorry, is it because of the size difference? But it would have been a storage.
If I may, it was a lid A for storage of agricultural equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Veal. Strictly speaking, we're not allowed to take any intervention from members of the public, but my understanding is that it was a small storage linny that actually do exist on a lot of Exmoor farms and aren't necessarily connected to any other range of buildings. Okay, anything else? No? Mr. Bray.
Just a couple of questions before I come back with more comments. The fact there was an existing building there, which is clearly agricultural, doesn't seem to impact the decision. Is that correct? And then secondly, I couldn't actually see the size of the building, the footprint. If you can come back on those 2 points.
What was it? You want to see the original? Well, just the current size.
What are the actual dimensions? And how does that relate to the footprint of the existing one?
There was a comparison plan.
It's similar, I mean.
I mean, yeah, so the site plan is that, obviously the building on the left-hand side, the L shape of the barn was the remains of the building that's there. Okay, the right-hand side is the proposed building. So, I mean, in fairness, quick comparison, not hugely different size there.
Similar. Okay.
In terms of relevance of the historic building, from an officer's point of view, yes, we're aware there's a building there. That building's not there now. It's not a functional, but it's not a building you could use. If there was, I guess we wouldn't be doing this application. So, you know, we are dealing with it afresh. But, you know, it is part of the considerations. You know, the historic use of the site, the walls already being there. From the officer's point of view, in terms of its impact, that doesn't really help offset the landscape impact of the proposed new building.
So, members, I think it comes down to policy SE S4 and whether or not you feel that, indeed, whether or not you feel that actually the functional need is or isn't proven. Mr. Olsen.
Yeah, no, sorry, just to come back to this idea of what was there before, just to clarify that if it hadn't become such a ruin, is what we're saying is, then therefore this would be like a renovation, but it wouldn't be a problem. So the issue is that it's simply that the building as it is, there isn't much of it left, and therefore it's not a question of saying, well, then we're just simply replacing one building of a similar size with another. It's the issue that one isn't really around anymore. Is that? I just want to completely eliminate this issue. So essentially the ruin is of no consideration at all, is what we're saying.
From the officer's point of view, look, we're aware that there was a building there, and there's a ruinous structure left. That, from the officer's point of view, isn't enough to say you could have a new building. If the building was in such a condition they could repair it, we wouldn't be sat around this table because they wouldn't need a planning application. But the building, for all intents and purposes, is gone. We're dealing with essentially now with a new building on that site, albeit there are walls left there. Officers have obviously considered that in the round, but you know, we don't find that the evidence of that building, ruinous structure and the landscape, they are around Exmoor, almost ghost relics, aren't they, which in themselves have a bit of charm. And contrary to landscape character, this would be something different. It'd be a new building, you know, with a monopitch roof, which would have obviously, from an officer's point of view, a greater impact and a harmful impact.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
This does rather illustrate the decision-making process, doesn't it? Because we've got the development plan policies, which is the starting point for the decision, but against this, and it's very finely balanced, I think, as has been said, we've got these other considerations that we should also take into account. I've not made my mind up yet, but the other considerations seem to include, you know, whether in fact the level of landscape harm is significant or not. We've listened to the applicant in terms of the personal circumstances. Some weight can be given to that. We've got the delivery of biodiversity net gain that we wouldn't have otherwise. There is an existing building on the site, which does come into the consideration. It's been mentioned, there's reduction in size, the design is not inappropriate in itself. And there's the consideration set out in the agenda report itself about land management benefits and beekeeping, for example. So it is a really finely balanced decision, because we've got the policy, we all recognise that as important, but set against that we have these other material considerations, and as a decision taker we're able to take those into account and arrive at our own view on that. So I'm still listening to the discussion on that point.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Can I just be clear, that's the gable end of the existing structure? Yeah? Yeah. Thank you. Ms Stacey.
Thank you, Chairman. Like Dr. Kelly, I'm still making my mind up, and I understand that we are driven by our policies. I do recall the last meeting that we had when we discussed this, and we actually deferred a decision because we asked the applicant to go away and, if you like, try to come to an accommodation. And I know that the size of the building and its height has been reduced. It's now only for agricultural purpose, and the original application was dual purpose. It's replacing a former building, and if you look at the gable end of that building, it's fairly significant already in the landscape. It's not just two walls. So that I'm a little bit puzzled, because there's a significant amount of that building still remaining. We've been told that there will be no external lighting. Surveys have been carried out. So quite a lot's been done since that January meeting to try to meet with our requirements. The letter of objection that we received and was read out to us today is talking about this creating a precedent. I don't believe there's a need to create a precedent if one were to go against the officer's recommendations, and you know, the fact that surveys have been carried out, and for me there is already a building in that landscape, and so replacing it, I'm in some difficulty in understanding why we've not replaced it.
Well, it is open to members to take that view. If, as I say, I come back to it, I think the key policy is SES4 if you feel that there is a functional need that's been demonstrated. And also, if you feel that the landscape harm is minimised because of the amount of tree cover that there is there, then it is open to you to take a different view if you wish to. Mr. White.
Chairman, for me, it's probably helpful to put the policy up in front of members so you can be clear on what the policy is. I would, if you like, as well, just come back to page 4 of the agenda papers in the report, because that sets out the reason for refusal that officers have put in front of members. I'll summarise, but essentially the proposal relates to a new isolated building in officers' mind, okay? We're not satisfied that it demonstrates an overriding functional need for the building, and officers are also concerned that this part of the holding was part of the wider doors farm where there's building, so this element of potentially replacing previous buildings. That's like the first hurdle officers see it, okay, and then added to that, officers are raising concerns in terms of landscape, okay, so there you've got key issues that if you're looking to go contrary to officers' recommendation, we as officers would wish members to focus on. And on the policy SES4, which is the key policy, perhaps clause 2 is particularly significant there, because that talks about proposals for new isolated buildings, which it is, okay, and it tells you when they won't be, they won't be committed.
Worth reading that out.
I will, sorry, yes, I will. You can't see it. So basically, clause 2 says new isolated buildings will not be permitted unless it can be demonstrated that there are exceptional circumstances relating to an overriding functional need for a more isolated location, and where, okay, they do not replace existing agricultural buildings that have been subdivided away from the holding, and the requirement for them does not result from a change of farming practice, or change of farming practices, such that could adversely affect the management of the traditional landscape character of the national park. So I would really like members to focus on that, and then obviously if you think you can get through that hurdle, it's a case of, are you satisfied that in this instance the landscape impact of the proposal is acceptable?
So that is where it sits, ladies and gentlemen. If you feel that SES4 can be satisfied, and if you feel that the landscape impact is minimised because of the amount of tree cover, you can take a differing view to that of the officers if you wish. But at the moment, I'm not really hearing anybody taking any view at all, so it would be helpful to have something at some point. Yes, Mrs. Chilcott.
Just a minute question in my mind reading that, and thank you for clarifying that and pointing it out. It says new isolated buildings. The question in my mind, is it really a new building? Bear in mind, although it's in a state of disrepair, there is still a good piece of it there. So I would just, that's my quandary.
Mr. Olsen?
Yes, I'm following that. That for me, I think, and I'm still trying to understand, I'm sorry for being slow here, the sort of the hierarchy, as it were, of which precedes what. Because I think these policies are obviously absolutely applying to, and you can see how some are written, particularly 2B, which and you can see how that was written in a way in order to, for instance, not introduce the idea of a functional need being presented, which simply reflected, for instance, industrialisation of agriculture and a very large shed being put into that. That's clearly not the case here. In fact, if anything, this is going the other way to much more kind of traditional need around, for instance, beekeeping, which is absolutely acknowledged as an agricultural activity, and the officer's report makes that clear. And also has other sort of nature and wildlife benefits that we'd like to see within a national park. We'll come to that, because I think there might still be a way, in fact, to actually demonstrate that clearly there is an agricultural need here. But as I said, the point thing here is it has to be exceptional. But before that, with Mandy here, when I look at the photograph there, this isn't like just two courses of stone on the ground. You'd be hard pushed, particularly the other photo, if you can go back to the other one you had before that. We're being asked to sort of deny the evidence of our eyes in a way. That to me, if I'm driving past it, that clearly looks like a building. So I'm still struggling to understand why this, what looks to me like a building, is not a building. This is something that's been in the landscape for a long time. It's been used for agricultural purposes for a long time. It clearly needs, as often happens, old farm buildings often need to be changed and renovated in order to reflect the new needs for them. I'm still struggling with this. I'm still struggling to understand why this isn't simply a renovation of an existing building that's already been there.
Right, thank you very much. Mr. Petrinos.
All right. Thanks. Well, I think I'll put the cat amongst the pigeons and I'll move the opposite recommendation.
Is that seconded?
I will second it. Successfully move to the room, Chair.
Okay. Is there any other discussion anybody wants to have at this stage on that? Yes, Mr. Brooke.
Can you just clarify what was said then? I didn't just...
Right, so the officer's recommendation to refuse has been moved. It has been seconded by Dr. Kelly to test the mood of the meeting.
I'd also like to make some comments at this stage.
Yes, well, please.
And I thought I knew where I was going to go on this, and my mind was changing. And I'm looking at it in terms of the three key areas: agricultural need, is it exceptional circumstances, and landscape impact. And I think the landscape impact is minimal. I do think there's some exceptional circumstances which I think we can have a call on that, and I see the officers have gone one direction. When we look at all the factors, what we've heard here, when you look at the site, that there was a building there, I think we have an option under exceptional circumstances to say actually we should go with planning. Agricultural need, I know there's quite a list of what sets out agricultural need, but actually beekeeping, keeping tractors, is certainly edging that way, even though it may not meet the same strict criteria. So I'm starting to go against the officer's recommendation, but at this stage I'll go with the flow of the meeting.
Well, yes, Mr. Scott.
Yes, could I look at the site plan again, please? Thank you very much. I personally would like to see the plan passed.
Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy for members to carry on speaking to the motion that's been proposed. I will put it to the meeting, then you can decide whether or not you wish to support the motion. Mr. Holton.
Yeah, just one point. If the applicant was to come to the authority and say that they wanted to reinstate the building that was there, what would the arguments being presented today be presented to refuse the application to reinstate the building along the lines of, there is a gable end there, if they were to put another gable end the other side and a roof on it, what would the advice be from the planning officer?
I don't think it would be any different.
Well, Chairman, that's not the proposal in front of us.
No.
In all fairness.
I fully understand that we're supposed to look, but we're trying to make a judgment here of there is clearly a structure in the landscape, and we're being asked to pretend it isn't there, aren't we?
Chairman, what's there's there, and that's a fact, isn't it? We can all see what's there. I guess it's for members to determine how much weight they want to put on that. Officers are presenting a case before you. We've talked about what the existing structure means to officers, what that might mean in terms of the recommendation in front of you. That's the recommendation we've got. But members can clearly see what is on site. That might be part of the mix, part of your considerations, which leads you to come to a different view.
Scheme.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm also listening to the arguments. I wasn't here at the last meeting. It came to us presumably because the parish council were in favour and it came for refusal. And I do give weight to parish councils because they are inclined to know the situation better than we can, and they would have seen the building and the proposed building, they will know the site and so on. So I give quite a lot of weight to the parish council in this particular case. So that's where I am.
Well,
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Well, I think that would be a direct negative, so I think that the thing to do would be to take the motion that's before us. If you want to vote against it, that's fine. If it succeeds, it succeeds. If it fails, then we'll have another opportunity for a different motion to be put forward. It's always comforting when the solicitor nods to you, isn't it? Yeah. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, unless there's any further debate, I'm going to put the motion for refusal to the meeting. So may I see all those... the motion to accept the officer recommendation of refusal to the meeting. May I see all those in favour of the officer recommendation for refusal, please? All those against? And those abstaining? Right, that is clearly lost. So that gives us the opportunity for an alternative motion to be put forward. And if it is to be for approval, then can I please make sure that you've got your policy reasons to hand? Scheme? Oh, well, sorry, Mr. Hockley, you wanted to...
Yes, I'll put the motion for approval.
Yes, okay. Mr. Scheme, you seconded that?
Chairman, can I start? I should have voted against, not abstained then. I've just realised.
Well,
apologies.
Yes, I don't think it matters as it happens.
Well, if I refuse my vote,
so,
I'm voting against myself.
Mr. Hockley, you've moved that. I take it that you are accepting that there is a functional need as demonstrated by policy SES4 in your view, and that the landscape considerations are sufficiently taken care of by the woodland cover that there is there at the moment.
Yes.
Broadly speaking. Right, is that seconded, please? By Mr. Bray. Right. I'm going to ask Mr. White to come in because whilst that would be the broad outline of, I take it, your motion, Mr. Hopley, there would have to be conditions that would be associated with that should it be approved.
Well, it's just in terms of the reasons the member put forward at the minute. I mean, we've heard a lot about functional need, landscape impact. One thing I'm struggling with at the minute is the bit under clause 2A and probably B as well, where it talks about they do not replace existing agricultural buildings that have been subdivided away from the holding, okay, and the need hasn't arisen because of a change in farming practice. So I'd like to hear, like, for a reasoning's point of view, what members' views might be on that.
Okay, Mr. Bray?
Does it matter who's done that subdividing? The fact the applicant wasn't involved with that, or is it open to interpretation?
So the buildings weren't sold away by the applicant is the point you're making?
That fact, I mean, we say not subdivided. You can imagine a farmer subdividing his farm and then trying to build a plot of a shed over here. I don't think that's the case. So I just wondered, is that a factor to take into account? And the fact there's already a building there as well.
Mr. White? Yes? Sorry. Mr. White accepted that point. Okay. Mr. Petrinos?
Wasn't the point of the original recommendation that we've just rejected that there isn't an existing agricultural building there, and therefore it isn't being subdivided away from the holding? But,
Interesting point, Mr. Petrinos. Thank you. Mr. Elton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Petrinos, for making the point for us, actually, because you're absolutely right. I think, given that our reason, if I understand correctly, is that this is that there is an existing building, therefore this SE4 doesn't apply in this case, so you're absolutely right. The issue of subdivision doesn't apply here. It is an existing building landscape, and I think the point about the parish council I think is well made as well. It is locally regarded as there is an existing building there. We can see it from the photography. So I think that should be maybe possibly given advice from our officers. That might be where
Indeed.
I'm not saying.
I'm just going to take Mr. Holton, and then I'm going to ask the officers for just a little bit of clarification about, bearing in mind the mood of the meeting, where we are in terms of conditions and any other points that they think we need to take particular account of. Mr. Holton.
Yeah, sorry to be Machiavellian, but the reason of my previous question was if the applicant was to come back and ask for a reinstatement, what would the view be? Was that, and why I abstained, is that I think we should be deferring this again, because I don't think this has been thought through properly. And I believe if the applicant were to come back and seek for reinstatement, if it is indeed a structure there, which then we aren't in trouble with our policy.
Yeah. I did listen carefully to what the applicant said in his statement, and I understood that because of his particular circumstances, he needed a building to be configured in a particular way, which would make it possible for him to use it. And that is why I think the design has come forward in the way that it has today. I might have misunderstood the applicant's point, but in terms of surfaces and the roller shutter, I think the design before us was the one that suited his particular circumstances. And we can really only consider the design before us today, which I think has been, I'm taking it, put before us because of his need.
I do understand that, but what I wanted to do is remove a conflict with the policy if it was possible.
I think we have.
Yes. Look, I'm going to ask Mr. White. I know this is for a relatively small application. This is a very, very interesting series of planning issues that we have to work our way through, and we do need to make sure that our officers are happy legally as well as in policy terms with what members might be about to do.
Yeah, I think, sorry, I'm Graham Pridland, I'm the solicitor here today. You don't normally see me, I think everyone else is on holiday. I think what you need to be clear about is what your reasons are, and I suspect you're all very, very familiar with your own code of conduct. And of course, what we will need to do, if you are going to be going against an officer recommendation, that those reasons need to be very clear and they need to be recorded as well, which is what we'll do now.
Mr. White.
Tim, yeah, I mean, I've been scribbling, I think, what I think are the reasons that members are putting forward. Okay, So I'll read something out now, and you can obviously add to that, change it as you see fit. Bear with me, because I've jumped about a bit, so I'm hoping to cover everything. But essentially, members note that the application site is served by a small parcel of land, and that the proposed building would be used to store beekeeping equipment and farm machinery. Members also note that there was a small storage farm building on the site, which is still clearly evident in the landscape. Okay, we talk about policy SDS4. Okay, that obviously relates to agricultural and forestry development. Members are aware that it states, amongst other things, that permission will be granted in exceptional circumstances for new isolated buildings required for agricultural purposes, where it can be demonstrated there is no overriding functional need for the building, and its size and scale is commensurate with the demonstrated need. Now, members accept that the proposal would be for agricultural purposes, that the land requires maintenance, and that the building would contribute to land management benefits, not just on that land, but also on the wider land, that the equipment to be stored is necessary for agricultural purposes, and that there is a requirement for building space to accommodate the equipment that cannot be accommodated elsewhere, therefore providing exceptional circumstances relating to an overriding functional need. Members consider that even though there are buildings at Dawes Farm, these were not divided from the parcel of land by the applicant specifically, and that the need for the building has not arisen from a change in farming practices. And members also place weight on the fact that part of the building remains on the land, with one gable wall and a rear wall intact. Therefore, based on the evidence before them, members are satisfied that there is an overriding functional agricultural need for the building, that the building is in accordance with policy SDS4 of the local plan, which supports new agricultural buildings where it can be demonstrated that there's a functional need for the building, and its size and scale is commensurate with the demonstrated need. Moreover, and this is like the second part of the reason for refusal, members consider that whilst the building would be located away from other buildings, it would replace existing walls of a former building which is clearly visible in the landscape, and furthermore, its siting would benefit from hedge boundaries that would reduce its visual impact. Okay, and due to its appropriate siting and small scale, members do not consider the building would be prominent or significantly incongruous in the landscape. Okay, taking into account the characteristics of the area, members consider that the proposal would conserve the scenic beauty and character of the landscape. Therefore, members conclude the proposal would not harm the character and appearance of Exmoor National Park, and it would be in accordance with policy CES1, CED1 and SDS4, i.e. those policies mentioned in the reason for refusal, which in combination seek to ensure that the high quality, diverse and distinctive landscapes of Exmoor are conserved and enhanced, and that new isolated buildings are not permitted unless there are essential circumstances. Okay, I'm assuming that if you resolve to grant, it will be subject to conditions, Chairman, we can talk about those if and when.
Mr Hopley, that was exactly what you wanted to say.
Yes, I was going to say every word of that. All of the above.
Can I just be clear, who seconded it? Right, Mr Bray seconded it, thank you. Right. Is there any further discussion that members feel they need to have? And there would be conditions.
Sure. Yes. I would just like to thank the planning officer for thinking on his feet.
Indeed.
Very good.
Yeah.
Right. Are we happy to delegate the conditions to the officers?
Yes.
I think it might be worth just highlighting the conditions. Bearing in mind this is against lots of recommendations. So
Okay,
this is happy with the conditions.
Those of you who watch Blue Peter will know here's one I prepared earlier.
Yeah.
Happy with those?
Yeah.
So 10 conditions. Right, so that's proposed and seconded. We know what the reasons for approval are. We know what the conditions are. Everybody clear? Mm-hmm. May I see all those in favour of the recommendation? Right, that is now nem.con. Right, thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a tricky little one to go through. But it's very instructive, I think, for us to have applications like this from time to time that challenge and give one the opportunity to think a little sideways. So Thank you all very much for that. We're just going to have a pause for a moment, so anybody that wishes to leave can now take their departure. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move on then, if we may, to item 7.2, which is proposed conversion of existing church into a single affordable residential unit, amended description at Roadwater Methodist Church, Roadwater, and this is going to be presented again by Mr. Rose, and you'll find the report beginning at page 23. Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Chair. So here's the location plan of the site. The site is located centrally within the village of Roadwater and within the parish of Old Cleve. This slide shows the existing site and the proposed layout, which is to remain unchanged. And here is an aerial site plan just for a bit of further visual context. These are the proposed elevations. As you can see, no external alterations are proposed in this case, and the overall form and appearance of the building would remain totally unchanged. Here are the access arrangements, the revised access arrangements, I should say. The site is served by pedestrian access from the existing highway, and no changes to the access are now proposed by way of the amendments. The scheme also does not include on-site parking, reflecting the constraints of the existing site. And here are the floor plans. The scheme provides a single dwelling of approximately 104 square metres of internal floor space. Whilst this slightly exceeds the usual 93 square metre limit set by policy, officers note that paragraph 6.68 of the local plan provides flexibility where an existing building exceeds this, but is not capable of subdivision into more than one dwelling. And here is a map depicting the different flood zones in relation to the proposed floor plans provided by the agent. Now moving on to the site photographs. Again, I'll go through these quite quickly, but if members want me to refer back to any of them, please just say, and I can certainly do that. So the key considerations in this case are set out on this slide and are explored in full within the officer's report. Having regard to all the matters discussed, officers consider that the benefits of delivering a local affordable dwelling in this particular case outweigh the loss of an existing unused community facility. Officers are satisfied that all other impacts have been demonstrated to be acceptable and/or can be appropriately mitigated through the use of appropriate planning conditions. The proposal is therefore considered to accord with the development plan as a whole, and planning permission is recommended for approval subject to conditions. I'd also note, Chair, that there is a minor omission within my report in that it should also reference that the recommendation is made subject to the completion of a Section 106 legal agreement to secure the local affordable occupancy of the dwelling as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rose. So we have 3 public speakers on this item. The first of whom is Mike Hatton, who is a neighbour. Mr. Hatton, if you come to the microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes from when you start to speak.
So, I'm Mike Hatton, and I've lived at the Mill House for over 30 years. The issues with this application, I feel, are suitability as an affordable home. This is a large, hard-to-heat building, expensive, oversized as per your policies to convert and live in. As a parent, I am in favour of local housing, affordable local housing. This is not it, I think. But the main planning and day-to-day issue is parking and traffic safety. I've lived there for over 30 years. I have a lot of knowledge about it. There's little parking in our narrow village. I have a drive, lots of people don't. Permission was given for 2 two-bedroom flats with no parking whatsoever, almost opposite in the old post office, and there is not enough parking even with those flats not yet being lived in. There's little outside space and no parking available in the application. Visibility is extremely awkward leaving from the site. Bumps and accidents happen often on our corner, the most recent being on Good Friday, my neighbour opposite. There's no pavement at all, and the lane is at its narrowest at this point. Pedestrians, I know to my cost, are often not safe. Another relevant issue, I think the traffic and the parking is the main issue. Another relevant issue might be overlooking into my property if the windows are changed from opaque to clear in any further detailed permissions. This is a really important village in a very traditional Exmoor village, and it does need to be properly respected and converted properly. May I politely suggest you ask for considerable modifications? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next speaker is Anne Foster from Knapp Cottage. Again, Mr. Foster, you'll have 2 minutes from when you start to speak.
I'm Anne Foster from Knapp Cottage. It's opposite the church. I'm not convinced in this proposal. With no parking, and it's unworkable in our village, and we have no public transport or space here for parking. On this basis, I object to this planning. If developed, the new parking pressure will cause considerable distress to me and other villagers. Parking is a challenge in this part of the village already. I would also like to bring up the fact that one of the buildings close to me has just been given permission to be turned into flats and has no parking either, and they haven't even arrived yet. Unfortunately, the continued use of Airbnb and short-term lets is eating away at the thriving community soul of our village. None of us are convinced that affordable dwelling will be possible for a family with no car, basically. I think you should do a site meeting just to observe the pressure we're under. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our final speaker is Dave Sherman from Arkham's Villa at Roadwater. Mr. Sherman,
yes, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. My primary objection is, again, the inevitable parking displacement and its consequences. The site has no usable space for off-street parking. There's a shortage of on-street parking nearby. The current application recognizes this problem and proposes that the property would function without reliance on a car. However, planning permission cannot be granted under the condition that the property be car-free, as that would fail the standard test for planning conditions. There's no realistic way to enforce such a condition, and there's no mechanism to prevent occupiers or visitors to the site from having a car and parking it on the public highway. The car-free proposal is unrealistic. This is a rural location. The nearest bus stop is a 40-minute walk away along a narrow road with no footpath, no lighting. In practical terms, regardless of what is proposed, future occupiers, visitors, and service vehicles will most certainly generate on-street parking demand near the property. The village lane over the 400-meter stretch adjacent to the property now serves 7 dwellings that depend entirely on on-street parking. This is thanks to the flat being divided into 2 in particular recently, or the house being divided into 2 flats. However, the stretch of road only has space to park 7 vehicles. It is now operating at full capacity. Even during the day, parking is unavailable, typically, and delivery vehicles are usually forced to block the highway while unloading. Additional parking demand generated by the proposed dwelling would exceed capacity, displace existing residents, and force them to park over 200 meters away from their homes where their nearest alternative parking places are potentially available. In a narrow, unlit rural road, particularly in winter conditions, this raises clear safety and accessibility concerns, especially for elderly residents with limited mobility. The proposed development is not realistic and would cause serious hardships to existing residents. There are alternative uses for this building that would not upset daytime parking or nighttime parking as severely. I respectfully ask that the committee agree with Old Cleve Parish Council and refuse the application. Finally, I have one question. My concern, I'll be candid, is that there's an ultimate intended use for the property to be a holiday let. What will the legal capacities of the panel have to enforce the conditions that are given when given planning permission? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So, members, the debate is yours now, but the issue of parking is one that the officers may need to address during the course of our discussions, because clearly this is a matter of significant local concern. Okay.
Chair, just 2 questions if I may to start the discussion. Do we know when the chapel was last used as a place of worship?
I'm not sure exactly what it was, but at the same time, what it's doing.
Sorry, I missed that. Do we not know?
Right. A voice from heaven is telling me within the last 5 years, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't be absolutely sure. I think I'm right in saying that the Anglicans and the Methodists shared it latterly, and the Methodist circuit took a decision to sell it, so it ceased to be a joint church within a relatively recent number of years. I can't be specific about it myself, but it wasn't that long. It's not been redundant for decades.
Yes, thank you. And my second question, was it's described as a conversion of an existing church into a single affordable residential dwelling, and as reference to section 106, is that to ensure it remains as an affordable dwelling? That's fine. Thank you for that.
Okay, Mrs. Smith.
Thank you. My concern, even before the public speakers, was about parking with regard to this. Where did people park before when it was a church? And I've also noted in the parish council comments that they said originally, I know we have to look at what is in front of us now, but originally there was parking that has been taken out because of highways issues. So what has happened to that plot of land? Is it not within this application? Thank you.
I suspect the truth is that people attending church, which would have been relatively infrequent in the course of a weekly thing, would have parked on street.
There's no on-street parking.
Our public speakers wish to tell us what the situation was before, so I don't know if it's possible for someone to go and our public speakers can tell us where people used to park previously, but
I think you've got discretion to allow that.
Right, normally, ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't call members of the public again, but could you just tell us where the parking was
Over
previously?
the last 30 years, I think most people have walked from the village to either the chapel service or the church service. there was an odd drop out of the car, most people would.
It can also park at the village hall car park if necessary, because it wouldn't have been used on Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Right. Any other member wish to speak? Miss Stacey.
I was taking that question a little bit farther. The Methodist Church would have had events, anniversaries, funerals, weddings. Are we saying there is absolutely no on-street parking, full stop? Because people would have come from outside the funerals and weddings.
Ultimately, there's on-street parking. It's in the public domain, isn't there? Now, some of that, as we've heard from some speakers, is that's particularly in the vicinity of the site is heavily used.
Yeah.
But
a little farther away.
there is parking. The road further away, past the visual by the recreation ground. There is on-street. The streets are public.
Okay, thank you.
Can you go back to the area of use? Michael might not show.
The village hall is just up to the right.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Holtam, your red light is on, so I'm going to call you to speak first.
I was hoping to say
And then
something.
Mrs. Chilton.
I can't see in the report any input from the Highway Authority, and I wondered whether I'm missing something.
Yes, it's on page 36, Mr. Holtam. Highways impacts.
Sorry, the page 36 is the officer assessment of highway impact. The Highway Authority,
Yes,
I think,
I can't-
refers to standing advice. Simply speaking, this doesn't meet the policy, the standing advice requirement for parking. Okay, but the issue here is there's an existing land use which doesn't meet that either, and it generates traffic, or has potential to generate traffic and parking demand. Obviously, in its current use, its authorised use is as a church. Okay, but in land use planning terms, that's an F1 use. Okay, so there are other uses it could go to without causing material change of use. So they can do other things that don't require planning permission. They could open it as a museum. They could open it as an educational space. Okay, these uses generate parking. Now, definitely, there's a difference in the character and nature of that parking compared to a residential use. I mean, arguably, there's higher peaks, higher parking demand, isn't there? But less frequently, residential uses generally have a smaller parking demand, but obviously it's of a more frequent basis. Okay, so officers looking at that, accepting the standing advice of the Highway Authority, that's the assessment set out in the report, come to the view that whilst it doesn't provide on-street parking, the existing land use doesn't. Sorry, off-street parking, the existing use doesn't either. Okay, so then there is this balancing exercise. Would it cause a severe impact on highway safety? That's not to say it won't have an impact. We've heard from local speakers today, and we do know that stretch of road, certainly, the stretch you can see on the aerial photograph there, is quite often heavily trafficked with cars. Okay, so it's not an ideal situation, but there is this fallback, or the existing land use that we have to bear in mind here versus single residential dwelling. And officers' view on that is actually the potential, we talk about potential for parking demand, is less severe with the proposed residential use than it would be in its current existing use or alternative F1 use.
Okay. Mrs. Chilton.
Thank you. It talks about affordable housing. In saying affordable, presumably, and correct me if I'm wrong, that refers to rent or someone it will cost them to live there. Are there restrictions around that, around heating cost as well as rental cost? I'm just noting the commentary that these buildings are really difficult to insulate and insulate well. I know a few that have tried, and it's not a cheap or easy process. I'm trying to understand, in it being affordable, does it need to be thermally affordable to heat and keep as well.
I mean, if members are minded to resolve to grant planning permission, officers are recommending that it would be subject to a Section 106 agreement, which would ensure the occupancy of the dwelling is limited to those in local affordable housing needs. So it would provide affordable housing on that basis. The tenure of which would be resolved through the negotiations on a Section 106. I doubt very much it would come forward as a rental dwelling. It could. It's more likely to come forward as a self-build building affordable dwelling. We don't get so far involved as to look at what that might do to in terms of cost for heating, what have you. That would be for the applicant. It's not really something we could say you can't have planning permission for it because we're not convinced you could run it on an affordable basis. That would be up to the person taking it forward if it got granted planning permission.
But it's more about tenure than cost of occupancy. Dr. Kelly and then Mr. Keane.
Just one point, Chair. The main issue appears to be, if we're satisfied about the other points, about the traffic impact and highway safety. And I have to say that in my years of experience, so to speak, one house has never, in my view, been considered to have such a severe impact in terms of local plan policy or the national planning policy framework, which is very clear what is meant by severe impact on a highway network. I would be very surprised if the view came back that this would have a severe impact in those terms. And it's quite clear. And in terms of the national planning policy consultation going forward, and it's just closed, again it's clarifying what is meant by severe. And it doesn't apply, and I've never heard it apply to a single house. It's not to say it wouldn't do, but not in my experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kelly. Mr. Keane.
It's just partly a comment, but it's a magnificent building that needs to be preserved and used. I'm not sure we've heard, I mean, it's possible to use it for other uses, but the minimal amount of extra traffic would be able to thought if it was used as for the purpose that is proposed here. I've seen a chapel fall down when it's not used. So I think, you know, this building needs protecting if somebody's willing to put the money in, and all the restrictions that we've talked about are imposed upon it. I think that I would support the officer's recommendation.
So it's a non-designated heritage asset. It's classified as at the moment, isn't it? Mr. Bray.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the point about affordability. My understanding, affordability relates to the market price, isn't it? It's discounted. So to me, it's quite a challenge if someone, a developer, is going to have to insulate that building to modern standards for building regs. Now, that's up to the developer to make that call. But people buying it in the future, that property would be insulated to modern standards, and therefore the heating cost should be minimal. So affordability is around the purchase, isn't it? So I'm quite comfortable with that, and I think we need more affordable housing on Exmoor. The parking thing, what Joe clarified, that this could be used for other purposes, which would create more parking than domestic. I hear what you're saying, that maybe a lower or regular use. So I'm balancing up the impact of the parking for residential versus other uses. And I think in residential probably lower impact. So yeah, just want to make that point on affordability. I think I'm quite comfortable. It's the developer, to me, is going to have the challenge of insulating that and still have an affordable building when it comes to sell it.
I think that's right. Does any other member wish to speak? Does any member wish to propose anything? Mr. Elson.
Yes, if I could propose that we agree with the officer's recommendation.
Yes. Is that?
What's that, sorry? I thought it was
clearly subject to the conditions that you've outlined, particularly the Section 106. So yeah.
So, first Mr. Keane, second by Mr. Elson. Okay. May I see all those in favour of that? Right, well that again is passing in common in that case. Thank you very much for that. And I thank our public speakers very much for attending. You're very welcome. Thank you.
That's the only issue. We can only do what, as always, we can only discuss what
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to item 7.3, which is discharge condition 3 of approved application at Exmoor National Park Information Centre for Pavilion, the Esplanade, Lynmouth, and this is going to be presented by Mr. Dick.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, members. Members may recall in October, members voted to approve application 624125-007 for a new extract unit and flue at Lynmouth Pavilion, subject to conditions. This type of application wouldn't ordinarily come before members, but because it's the National Park Authority, are the applicants. This slide shows what there's an area photograph of where the Lynmouth Pavilion is. Right, yeah. This slide shows where the location of the approved extraction unit and flue. One of the conditions related to a pre-commencement condition requiring an odour risk assessment to be submitted prior to its installation. The assessment has been submitted. The authority have consulted the Environmental Health Officer at North Devon Council, who has advised that they accept the conclusions and the impact and considers the proposed staged mitigation approach to be justified and proportionate based on the circumstances. On that basis, the amended odour assessment is acceptable and the staged approach to mitigation is proportionate. Consequently, the proposal would safeguard local amenity and the surrounding natural environment in accordance with the condition. It is recommended that the authority formally discharge condition 3 of approved application 624125-007.
Unaccountably, we have no public speakers on this. Does any member wish to speak? Does any member wish to propose? Right, so moved by Ms Stacey, seconded by Mr Petrinos. May I see all those in favour? Name con, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mrs. Yes, don't tell face. And item 7.4 is application under Regulation 3 of the Town and Country Planning General Regulations 1992 for investment consent for the sighting of a flag in association with the National Park Centre here. And Mr White.
Thank you, Chairman. This is another application that comes before committee because it's the authority's own application. That's Exmoor House on the slide. X marks the spot. So at the outside of the building is where it is proposed to place a flag. It's a flag on a temporary, I don't know what you call it. Jack pedestal, yeah. Sits on the ground, flag sits in it. So that's the flag, if we get the cursor just here. Okay, that's the sign we're dealing with. Sorry, that sign, the other ones on the building have already been before this committee. That's a photo mock-up. It's not actually there, but that's what it would look like in place next to the ramp. That's it. That's it, yeah. So actually, dimensions, so it's just over 3 metres tall in overall height from the ground to the top. The flag itself is 2.6, but the impacts are okay, Chairman. So the recommendation is to approve.
Is it a flag or a banner?
So the application for you, Chairman, is for a banner.
I'm just sort of confused because this has a rubber base or a weighted base of some sort, and presumably, we don't want somebody stealing it, so I guess the times have to be taken inside. Yeah. So this is not a permanent fixture. It's not attached to anything. It seems to me that if we were just going to put like a sandwich board outside, would we need planning permission for that? I'm just curious as to why would normally really, this is sort of public information, would we normally expect an applicant to apply for permission for a temporary thing that can be picked up and put inside at any moment? In your own property, on your own forecourt?
It's an advert, and then the advert regs, doesn't benefit from deed consent. There are A-boards out
Because
there.
it's an advert, right.
Yeah, which do benefit from deed consent because they're within the forecourt, but that, the flag, the banner, if you like, doesn't, so that's why the application is in front of us.
Right. Mr Holton.
May I ask, is this application limited to that design of banner, or does this mean you can put any banner there?
I don't think you normally get involved with the detail on the advert.
Yes, I think it's just acknowledging the advert rather than what the advert contains, so to speak. So we're giving advertisement consent.
What I didn't want was another application next week saying that we've decided to change the sign to the bottom of the banner, not the top.
No, I think this will cover all eventualities. Mrs. Chilwell.
I was thinking of a night skies advert or something, there's lots of potential. The only thing I'd say is, one, they can still go over the wind, even if it's got a sort of fairly heavy bottom on it. And secondly, I just think it would have been nicer to have something affixed to the building. I think it just would have been a more professional look. That's just my view. But I think that will probably go over in the wind, and then people can't get in the car park. So
I think that's a debate we have to take to another forum. But the pure planning merits of this application, Dr. Kelly?
Chair, my understanding, just in answer to that particular query, was the content of the banner could change.
Yes.
But its shaping and dimensions cannot.
Yes, indeed.
And the only other point I would say, are 6.5 pages of planning history that relevant?
Mr. White is looking stupid.
we have to put it in date order as well, because I'm sort of going
But it's interesting for us to see everything that's done here, isn't it? Yeah.
Chairman,
Mr. Gee.
Can I propose, Chairman, that we approve?
Hey, is that seconded? By Mr. Bray. Is there any further debate? If not, may I see all those in favour? Limcom, thank you very much. Oh, you didn't?
One abstainer.
Yes, right, good. Thank you all very much. So we move on to item 8, which is the schedule of Section 106 agreements. This is our regular inspection of where we are with the legal agreements that are being undertaken by Devon County Council on behalf of the authority. So, Mr. White, if you could just trundle us through these, please.
Chairman, I might just highlight some in particular because most are sort of where they stay on the list. Certainly the start, that first page, we are waiting for the applicants on a lot of those. We've got Knoll Farm, Timberson near the bottom of that list. I was hoping before this meeting actually I might have the agreement in front of us to sign so we can get that sorted, but hopefully before this comes back to this committee that one will certainly be off that actual list. It is just a deed of variation. And then on the bottom of the table on the second page, there is the Dunk Review Farm, the housing scheme at Cutcombe. There's been some more progress on that now. The draft is with the developer. He's fed back on the draft, largely happy with most of it. There's a couple of things he wants to discuss with us and the housing authority, but that at the minute is making good progress, so it'll be quite good to get that one done.
It's worth saying, isn't it, that we did actually have a meeting about it a couple of weeks ago, and it did help having the solicitor, and the applicant and the owner of the land in, so to speak, the room at the same time. They were actually Zooming, but it was very helpful because some of the misunderstandings between each party were ironed out in that forum. But what did also emerge from that is that the legal agreement is perhaps more complicated than the applicant perhaps had envisaged, because you will remember that part of that application has a footway that goes from the village hall back in the direction of the village. That has to be part of the legal agreement with the village hall, with the Moorland Hall. And I think that there also has to be the involvement of the owner of the land in the legal agreement, as well as the developer in that. So it actually was more complicated than I think the applicant and the owner originally thought. But that was the sort of thing that came to light in that discussion. It was very helpful in driving that forward. It's also worth saying that this application is, I think, going to be the first one that's going to use the newly developed 106 template. And developing the template does mean that there's a little bit of coming and going in the course of this particular application, but it should make it quicker for succeeding applications, because if there's a template that you can use and basically just strike off the bits you don't need, that should speed the process up very considerably. So that is an interesting one for all sorts of reasons.
Do we think that's going to be finished by the end of the month? Because I know the applicant's under pressure for a reason, and maybe that shouldn't be our thoughts, but is it down to them now?
Well, it'd be down to all of us, to be honest with you. I doubt by the end of the month, simply because there's third-party involvement, okay, and it's difficult to account for that. So I think it's probably too ambitious to say point this month, but hopefully we can make good progress. Outside of that, remember when we were sat in committee, the resolution was also subject to the favourable outcome of a habitat regulation assessment, appropriate assessment. We had confirmation last week from Natural England that they were happy with that. So that's a big tick, a big step forward as well, because without that, the scheme would have been hard to move forward. So we're pleased to have that. We now can solely focus on Section 106, which is what's happening.
Good. Sounds like we've worked very hard to get that through.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Right, anything on the ones that are still in train? Anything then about the ones that have been resolved?
It's good progress. And it's nice to see them.
Well, indeed it is, but as I say, I think what ought to help in the future speed the whole thing up is being able to agree the template. Hopefully that will make a lot of difference.
There are some older ones on this list, undoubtedly, and it would be quite nice to, there's a bit of frustration, I think, from our part that we're not able to resolve those yet, but we continue to work on those. As I say, the vast majority of cases we are waiting for the applicant. It's just, we need to get those over the line, because they've been hanging about some of them for a couple of years now, so it would be quite nice to draw lines under those. But one in particular, Jeremy.
Wouldn't it, Mr. Holton?
It would, Mr. Chairman, and I can let people know that there has been a hold-up because there was a request for a further undertaking of the landowner's solicitor's costs. That's been resolved, and I understand things are now moving forward in the right direction.
Good. Let joy be unconfined. Right, if there's nothing else on the 106 agreement, but it is very helpful for us to see that list on a regular basis, because they are key parts of the planning commissions, effectively. Now, the application is delegated to the chief executive, so if we go through these as usual page by page, this is item 9, page 1. Porlock proposed installation of outdoor calisthenics park. Yeah. Indeed. Well, yes. Yes, they're now calisthenic. Page 2. The one up from the bottom, West Hollicombe, well, Broad Lane, Withypool, yes, the Hawkridge one, actually, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's about cabins.
Yes, that's the one that came to committee. When was it? January, was it? I think it was January.
No, it must have been December. I think wasn't it the same one as the Dawes Farm? I think they were both on the same meeting.
Okay. Yeah. I thought it was January, but
well,
when the same as the platform. Anyway, so 3rd of January came to committee.
Earlier in the year.
Got deferred to allow discussions between applicants and officers, with the decision ultimately delegated to officers so we could find a suitable outcome. Had some good discussions actually. Came back with a scheme slightly revised, not massively in terms of design, but really helpfully. It took them off the wheeled base, which dropped them down quite significantly in the height, which was a lot of the, not that the parish council were objecting or the land court officer, but that was raised as a concern. So it really helped with that to the point where actually it was a good scheme actually, I thought, you know, compared to where it was. So thank you members for helping us to get that one over the line. But yes, it's a good scheme to see on this. Okay.
Anything else on page 2? Page 3. Page 4. Yeah, wait for it. Yes, anything else on page 4? Now the second one down on the page 4.
So that's Slocum Barn. I think the site's fairly familiar to this committee. We talked about the appeal decision up here beforehand as well. So this building that's now lawful was subject of a dismissed appeal. There was 2 buildings put up on land without planning permission. They applied retrospectively. We refused, got dismissed at appeal. They removed 1 building on the back of that because we chased them and they charged the other one. Actually, we think the other one's been here long enough. They applied for lawful dwelling certificate, demonstrated it was there long enough, therefore it's now lawful. Yeah.
If I can make a comment, it's a great one-word balance of views. I know there are people who have voted in court who don't believe that's correct, but they weren't prepared to put it in writing and therefore couldn't be listened to. So I think it's a point of general public, if they think that that's wrong about something, put it in writing and then it will make a difference. So in this case, they wouldn't.
Well, and again, it comes back to the training we had last month on certificates of lawfulness.
Yes.
And a lot of it does depend on the willingness of people to swear an affidavit, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people weren't, and fair enough, I'll report back to the parish council. Right.
Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Then we've got page 9 where we've got some prior applications.
So the second one up from the bottom, I haven't got a decision.
No, that should say prior approval required, that one. So these are, well, they're bottom 3, aren't they? They're all prime notification applications for agricultural buildings, which we can seek to approve, take the details on, so it's called prior approval. On each of those, that's what we've moved to do. There's, I think, on their own merit, there's particular issues. We'd like to see the specific details to be able to say whether that's ultimately okay or not. Sometimes it can lead to discussions where actually we think it's not okay, but we can find a solution. So those will go through a discussion, and they'll either come in as prior approval applications, or they might revise and look at a different site.
And then there's just the last one on page 2. So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Item 10, site visits. The reserve date for the site visit for the May meeting is Friday the 1st of May, if it is required.
It might be, Chairman, so, I mean, it's always difficult to tell, but if you like, looking forward to May, if we've earmarked that as more likely to happen than not, as it stands at the minute. Does depend on what happens in the meantime, but slightly we might need to focus on that.
Okay, so pencil it in your diaries if you can.
Was that 29th? What's the date?
1st of May, Friday 1st. Because the meeting will be the following Tuesday, the day after the bank holiday. Right, ladies and gentlemen, that was a most interesting session. Thank you all very much for that. As always, I declare the meeting closed.